Hey everybody, so before the video begins, as you may see, I'm in a different avatar. The other one is not a commissioned avatar, and I'm starting to worry about copyright, so we're going with this one. This one's a commissioned avatar that I had commissioned a while ago. This is my Nardo avatar, and I love it. So today's video, we're going to be talking about how Vrchat changed my entire life, which it really, really did. So before Vrchat, I was an extremely repressed child. I had a lot of things going on in the background of my mind that I had to kind of repress because of the way that my parents raised me. I was raised like conservative Christian and stuff, but I had some very not cis things going on in my mind back then. But there'll be a whole video on that you can go watch. It'll be up in the cards. So starting off, I got into VR because I started watching some YouTube videos for years before, and I would watch like Cyberchimp, Lolathon, Fizzy, Riel the Protogen, and all of them. So I knew about VR well beforehand. It's just because the money was tight, I didn't have the opportunity to be able to get a VR headset until my nephew brought over his Quest 2 on Thanksgiving Eve 2 years ago. And I had been wanting to get in VR for such a long time. I saw the freedom that they had in there, the freedom of expression, just being able to embody these avatars and be who they wanted to be and make friends and all that in a virtual space. I had grown up very lonely and without very many friends, so I'm just like, this is the one platform that would be able to change that. So once I got my hands on a Quest 2, I was so freaking excited. So the first place that I decided to visit is, of course, the Black Cat. I do not recommend going to the Black Cat on your first visit to Vrchat. It is a very cringeworthy place. There are some very unsavory characters there, and there is a lot of weird beans there. You will see stuff. You will hear stuff. Mostly the hard R being dropped every 5 seconds. But if you want a good, like, degenerate Vrchat experience, that is that is a good place to go, and that is the first place that I decided to go, and it was freaking fun. Honestly, I knew what I was getting myself into, and I had a blast doing it. But I wanted to get the cringy part of Vrchat out of the way, so I did, and I got to see some images that I can't wipe from my head to this day. But the second place I ended up actually going visiting is actually one that I still hold close to my heart, is the Furry Hideout. I went to the Furry Hideout, and it was an extremely, extremely welcoming place. There was a whole bunch of people who were so open about who they were and just the avatars that they wore, the way that they greeted me. I apparently landed in a very, very good instance. And I went in there, they were so loving, and even though I was this awkward person just eavesdropping on conversations, they would eventually include me into the conversations, and I made a couple of friends that night. And I kept visiting the Furry Hideout over and over again because they were so welcoming. We'll get more into that here in just a minute. So, my first night in VR, what did I decide to do? I decided I was going to sleep in VR. And it went about as well as you would expect. I did fall asleep. I found a place with a bed, and I just fell asleep. It was in a public lobby, so I took a bit of a chance. But it worked out in the end. But when I woke up very unrested. However, the immersion that I was feeling, just being in these pretty worlds, like this one, just falling asleep in a pretty world that was nice and calm, but has like a scenic background or something. It was so immersive, and I got so deep into it. Like, I didn't want to leave VR. It was this place that I had been looking forward to getting into for so long, and now that I finally had an opportunity to get into it, I didn't want to let go of it. So, had my first night's sleep in VR, did not wake up well rested at all, but I enjoyed the experience nonetheless, and I actually kept sleeping in VR for like months after because I never wanted to leave. So, from then on, I ended up actually having something kind of funny happen. Because I had the chance to be able to be more expressive, because I had the chance to be able to go to all these different worlds, and because I was so immersed, in VR, I actually started waking up thinking that I was still in VR. I had moments in real life where I thought I was still in VR. Like my brain was like struggling to grasp, like I was literally living in two realities. Like that's exactly how it felt like. In one life, I was just doing my job, I was just doing all the monotonous things, and then I had this amazing life in VR with all these people and people who I would know, now call family or friends, and it's just like, and I was going to these amazing looking worlds, like these five-star hotels, or like these amazing, like out of this world builds or worlds, and being able to do all these activities through the games on Vrchat. It's just like I can't really explain it very well, but it's like I was just it was my brain couldn't process it correctly. It was like so much freedom all at once, and it was literally like living in two realities. So once my nephew had to take his headset back, I realized one very important detail. Because I had been exposed to VR, because I wanted it for so long, and now I had that thing in my hands and it was being taken away now, I did not want to be without VR, because it was it had such a huge impact on my life in that moment. It like opened so many doors for me. Literally the same day I ordered my VR headset. I probably didn't have the financial means to do so, but I figured something out and I got my headset, and from then on out, I was completely immersed in VR. I was completely locked into VR. It's something that I got into pretty much every night, and I still have for the last 2 years. There's hardly a day where I don't go without going into VR. So, moving on from that, for the first couple of months of VR, I ended up doing a lot of self-exploration. Like, avatars are a huge part of VR chat. It's the vessel that you pilot, that you embody throughout your entire experience in VR, and they are not bound by physical limitations, which for people like me, who maybe trans and didn't quite know it at the time, I ended up doing a lot of gender exploration without even knowing. I ended up starting out with an avatar that's called the Wool Wizard. It's a felt avatar with like a little like a sewing needle as a sword, and I kind of evolved through avatars over time, then getting like a black cat avatar, and then I started going more into the furry sphere and started getting like furry avatars. This is a furry avatar. Hi, I'm a furry. Hi, I'm Jenny. With my avatars, I wanted to get away from the humanity side of things. I didn't want to have a human form because it felt like I was restricting myself to my physical limitations, because I didn't really like my body at the time. I was overweight. I hated the way that I looked. There's a lot of other things, like I wanted to be just different in virtual reality than I was in reality. I wanted to have that separation. So that's why I went with furry avatars, because I can be whatever I want. I can be whatever animal I want. I can be whatever fictional animal that I want. And this is a fluffy dragon. I am a fluffy dragon. Or, like with my last avatar, I was a cat. And I embody my avatars. Like, avatars are such a huge thing for me. I embody them. I create characters with my avatars, and it brings out different parts of myself. It could bring out the silly side. It could bring out the more sensitive side. It could bring out the sad side of me. It could be a whole number of things. I am very expressive with my avatars, and I have avatars for every occasion, really. But throughout getting avatars, I realized one thing. And this is something that a newbie wouldn't know. When you get into VR, you'll notice that there is a lot of people who end up choosing female avatars. There's a reason for that. Female avatars are more available than guy avatars, and a lot of guy avatars, we call them e-boys. They wear a lot of bling. They're these really dolled up guys that just don't look very good, in my opinion. I don't like e-boy avatars. So a lot of people actually end up going with female avatars. So it's not uncommon to see that. Now with me, I grew up wanting to be like my sisters and my friends that I had, which were mostly female. I would always hang around them. I wanted boobs. Like, I wanted to have a female figure. I even wanted to act like girls, but the only problem is I was raised as a guy. Here comes VRChat to save the day. I can be whatever I want in VRChat. However, I had to go through a process of unrepressing myself, going through a lot of I had to tear down a lot of inner walls. There's a toggle on one of my avatars. It was actually a Femboy Hooters avatar, and it was a Nardo. You could probably find it if you look for it on VRChat. I had the Femboy Hooters avatar, and it had a female toggle on there. It added boobs and added waist. It like slimmed up the avatar in certain ways, and I was nervous about turning it on because I remembered I'd had all these feelings when I was a kid. If you want to know more about it, I'll have a video in a card. Go look at it. But I had all these feelings inside of me, and I'm just like, well, female avatars are more common anyway, so I guess I'll try it out at one point. And I did. And I was kind of like contemplating, like, okay, people won't really notice because it's so common. And that was what happened. A couple of people noticed, but they're like, oh, okay, you're just trying it out. Yeah, okay. But yeah, no, those people ended up finding out later that I was trans. That was kind of like red flag number one, or inconspicuous trans flag colored flag. So my exploration, my expressions on VR did start to leak into real life. I started getting more female avatars over time, and I also I had to face the feelings I had as a kid in my head. Now, at the same time this was going on, over the first 6 months to a year of me being on VR, I actually went into VR with an open mind. And what I mean by that is because I was raised as a conservative Christian, I never explored anything LGBTQ. Now, I was exposed to it through YouTube, but I always kept it at an arm's length. I kept LGBTQ stuff at an arm's length because I was taught, those people are bad people. We're not supposed to like them. Like, it goes against God and all that kind of stuff. But by now, I was like questioning a lot about the religion that I was in, Christianity and all that. And there's a lot going on back then. But now it's just like, I was out of pure curiosity. I wanted to learn more about these people. I want to know why they're so hated, why they're not liked by so many people, and why there's even laws against them. And through exposure to these people, I ended up making more friends in the LGBTQ community. I started getting exposed to people who were in relationships. And just over time, I saw these are just normal people living their lives, and just, why are we bothering them? Why are we making laws against them? Like, why are they so hated? There's no reason. They're just normal people. And that brought up a lot of questions to myself, like, why am I straight? Like, is this the way that I was born to be straight? Or am I just repressing something else? So I started doing a lot of sexuality exploration. I actually ended up dating a couple guys, and also getting to know a couple of trans people, and explore my gender, and just I was doing a whole bunch of stuff all at once, getting to know a lot of people from the LGBTQ community, and just a lot of walls in myself were being torn down because I just realized, like, how much I've been held back by the society that I had been raised in and born in. And throughout this whole process, I ended up learning that so much of my life was shaped and controlled by other people. But in this VR space, I could be who I wanted. I could learn about other people from all over the world, from all different walks of life, without getting in trouble, without being looked at as weird, and with complete and utter freedom. And do it anonymously. It was a safe place for me to do all this. VRChat is it's not a safe place per se, but it's safe enough to where, you're not going to be put in danger if you or you're not going to be outed if you start looking into this stuff in secret. As time went on, I realized I was pansexual. I had gotten into enough relationships and known enough people to where I'm just like, yeah, I like people for who they are, and I don't care what you have. I wanted to date people for who they were instead of what they were. And that really opened me up to a whole new world. And that also started to reflect inside of myself, like, why do I hold myself back from being who I want to be? And I, like being around trans people and the trans community here on Vrchat taught me, like, hey, there's a thing called transitioning. It's where you take hormones to get a feminine figure and in a lot of cases become more like a girl, which I was very nervous at the time because I just like, I'm going to be judged by everybody. I'm going to like face all the negatives that are going to come with transitioning, like people looking at me weird or thinking that I'm a freak or blah, 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 blah. But over time, I'm just like, do I want to live a lie? I'm finding more about myself in this VR space than I ever have anywhere else. Why do I want to just keep it in here? Why do I just want to keep it locked down to in here? I want to have a life outside of here. I don't want to do all this stuff just virtually. Now, at the time, I actually did eventually come out as pansexual on Vrchat, and through some gender exploration, actually tried out becoming trans socially. I was socially transitioning just to see if it was a right fit for me. And here to come to find out it was. Now, I really took this to the next level. It started leaking into my real life. Doing this stuff on VR, I wanted it to be more than just online. I took it out. I took it out in the real world. I took steps. I actually ended up buying thigh highs. I ended up buying leggings. I ended up buying skirts, bras, breast forms, and all that. I was really delving deep into a lot of gender exploration. And this was all introduced to me from Vrchat. And I started realizing, oh, there's something really going on here. I'm starting to act more like I am in Vrchat. I'm starting to feel more like who I am in Vrchat. The avatars that I'm embodying, I'm starting to see in myself. And I ended up actually going to a place called Anthrocon. It's a convention for furries. It's one of the biggest furry conventions in the United States. 17,000 people showed up. Biggest convention in the furry fandom in the United States, and it was my first one. And on top of that, I went there with 2 gay friends of mine. That was an experience in itself. That was that one threw me for a loop. I was still a little bit transphobic in my head. I was still processing some stuff, but I gotten over it now. And then on top of that, I went out as Jenny. I went out with a skirt on. I went out with some thigh highs or whatever. I got the baby trans experience, in other words. And I put she, her on my name badge. This was a huge step for me, and I was around many other people. Most of the furry fandom is LGBTQ or whatever. Most of them are LGBTQ. I was around all of them, and I felt at home. I called Anthrocon my second home because I felt so welcomed. I was around so many people who were so expressive and just being who they were no matter what. And it was beautiful. Just the fursuits, the people dressing the way they want to, it was dripping gender expression everywhere, and I was seeing all this, and I'm experiencing it, and I still remember walking down the streets of downtown Pittsburgh, and I'm walking in a skirt, and I'm just like, I like this. I like this a lot. This is me. This is every bit me. So immediately after that, I started questioning whether I should transition IRL. And I eventually did. I got on hormones. I decided I want this to be my life. The person who I am on Vrchat, I want that to be real. I want that person who is so confident, who is so comfortable with who they are and looking the way they want to be with the figure and everything. I want to be that IRL. Now, right now, I am pretty far away from that. Like, I'm overweight, but certain parts of myself, because of my transition, I do have the booba. Like, I'm dressing the way that I want to. I've built up the confidence to wear makeup and do all kinds of feminine stuff. But that all stemmed from me being in Vrchat. It changed everything for me. However, as great as that is, reality is still present. Just because it's great being on VRChat, and I had that experience at Anthrocon. You still have real life to contend with. The world is a very judgmental place, and it can be very dangerous at times. We live in a world where if you're different, you're looked down upon. You're looked down as different. And with the Orange Man in office, it's become more so hard to be yourself, especially if you're trans. Laws are being lobbied against us, let alone what's going on in Minnesota and just a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the world. It's just, there's a lot of evil out there. And during this whole time of like, I started transitioning. I was finally being myself that I was in VR. I was being myself. I was finally being myself. I was expressing myself, but then I got rejected by my family. The news was negative all the time. Trans people were and still are under threat. I had to deal with my own, because I got rejected from my family, and that triggered a lot of like mental issues and stuff. So it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. However, having a fallback of safety to go back to, a place where I could still express myself, a place where I could find my found family, a place where I had friends to support me, and now I have two very loving partners that can support me. I have more going for me than I ever had before. I have friends. I never had friends before. I have two partners. I never had that before. And it's been just, VRChat has changed everything for me. Through thick and thin, there have been people there supporting me the whole way, even on my worst days. I never had that before. I have built a community of people around me who are there for me no matter what. And that's all thanks to VRChat. And it's gotten me to, life has broken me down, but this has helped build me back up to being my true self, IRL. And to be able to share it with all of you through VRChat. We're here in VRChat right now. I'm able to share my experience with you in the form that I want to take. I'm able to be more myself than ever. And I'm so happy about that. And I want to bring y'all along on this journey that I'm going through and just talking about all this stuff and telling you my experience and be able to talk to y'all in the comments. So that's my experience on VRChat. There's a lot there, and there's more about my experiences on VRChat that I want to talk about later on, mostly like the rave scene or the time that I was an lead air show pilot. Those are going to be videos all on their own, and I will be making those later on, but for now, that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't gotten into VRChat, maybe you can try it. You can do it on desktop, by the way. You don't actually need a VR headset, but it's preferred that you do that because it gives you the immersion. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that's my experience on VR, and you know what time it is. Blah, 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 blah. You know what time it is. Nom. You taste funny. What?